Right now on Morning News Now, Donald Trump indicted. This morning, the former president faces several federal charges for his alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Efforts that the special counsel says led to the deadly January 6th insurrection.
The attack on our nation's capital on January 6th, 2021 was fueled by lies. Lies by the defendant targeted at obstructing a bedrock function of the U.S. government.
We have team coverage with a closer look at the charges he's facing, plus reaction from Capitol Hill, the White House, and Trump himself. Also, what it all means for his 2024 campaign. Also this morning, it is a tale of two extremes. In the West, that record heat that has been baking the region for weeks is fueling a wildfire that's now spread across 2 states. And in the Midwest, severe storms are threatening millions of Americans this morning with heavy rain and flash flooding. We are tracking it all. Plus, a plot twist in the strike that's crippling Hollywood. This morning, writers and the big Hollywood studios get set to talk this week for the first time in months. More on the major sticking points that are keeping productions on hold. And House Swap new numbers show the number of U.S. homes going to foreign buyers is at its lowest point in years. We'll look at what's behind this shift and what it means if you are looking to buy.
Good morning. Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Let's get right to it on a busy news morning. We begin, of course, with the new legal challenges for former President Donald Trump coming in the form of these new indictments handed down by a federal grand jury.
The grand jury returned a sweeping 45-page indictment yesterday. It was the culmination of a months-long investigation into Trump's alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election results. The former president now faces 4 charges: conspiracy to defraud the country, conspiracy to impede January 6 congressional proceedings, conspiracy against the right to vote, and obstruction of the electoral vote. This indictment marks the first time in history that a former president has been charged with trying to interfere with elections and undermine the democratic process. Special counsel Jack Smith had this to say just moments after the indictment was released to the public.
The attack on our nation's capital on January 6th, 2021 was an unprecedented assault on the seat of American democracy. As described in the indictment, it was fueled by lies. Lies by the defendant targeted at obstructing a bedrock function of the U.S. government, the nation's process of collecting, counting, and certifying the results of the presidential election.
The Trump campaign has responded to the indictment, calling the charges fake. It is the latest in a series of high-profile cases against the former president, whose mounting legal battles are overlapping with his 2024 election campaign. We, of course, have team coverage here covering all aspects of this indictment, including Peter Nichols, Mark Murray, and Julie Sirkin. But first, let's begin our coverage with NBC News Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Delanian and NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos. Ken, we'll start with you. This indictment, 45 pages long. Walk us through some of the biggest takeaways and what we learned from the indictment that maybe wasn't revealed during the January 6th committee hearings.
Good morning, Joe. It's a remarkable document, first of all, because it charges one defendant, Donald J. Trump, and names 6 unindicted co-conspirators, which was a bit of a surprise. But look, Jack Smith and his team lays out right away that it was not illegal for Donald Trump to claim fraud in the election, and he actually had a right to even lie about claims of fraud. But what they say is he crossed the line, he and others, when he acted on a scheme of what they call pervasive and destabilizing lies that was designed to subvert the lawful transfer of power. And as you said, there are 4 criminal charges here that describe 3 separate conspiracies. But what's interesting is what the former president is not charged with. He's not charged with inciting the January 6th riot. He's not charged with seditious conspiracy or insurrection-related charges that have been leveled at some of the violent rioters on January 6th. It's all about the campaign to try to delay the certification on January 6th, although the indictment does say that Mr. Trump exploited the violence on January 6th by making phone calls to senators and legislators, even as the violence was erupting at the Capitol, urging them to slow and stop the certification process. That was one bit of new information in the indictment. There's also some new contemporaneous notes from Mike Pence, the vice president, that wasn't necessarily presented by the January 6th committee in those televised hearings. But I have to say, most of this indictment describes conduct that was laid out very compellingly by that January 6th committee What this indictment does is put some flesh on the bones and describe a criminal conspiracy, guys.
Yeah, Danny, that's exactly what I want to ask you about. What do these specific charges, as well as any information that you can glean from this indictment, tell you about how extensive the investigation was?
I guess the answer is which investigation, because some of these facts alleged we saw as far back as the original Trump impeachment in connection with January 6th. And then last summer, we saw and watched and heard extensive hearings before Congress, before the January 6th committee, on exactly the same facts. Then they issued a report. So a lot of this since then has been publicly reported. So in essence, other than the facts that Ken pointed out, which require really scrutinizing this indictment, much of the facts in this indictment were known to the public. To the public at large, it was readily available. The real question wasn't so much those alleged facts, but whether or not the special counsel believed those facts fit into federal criminal statutes. And the answer now appears to be that he obviously does. And keep in mind, there were other charges, other potential statutes that were thrown around, like insurrection, that were not charged. And I think that was probably the prudent course for Jack Smith. It is really easy for former prosecutors and people like me to come into a studio and say they could charge the insurrection statute. But it's a totally different thing for a prosecutor to stake his career on going up against the most difficult, most challenging criminal defendant in the history of American law and prove those charges beyond a reasonable doubt. This represents a more, I guess I would say, reasonable approach to getting an indictment. That plus naming unindicted co-conspirators, but leaving them actually out of the indictment, all designed to streamline this and get to the target, who is Donald Trump.
Let's talk more about that, Ken. As you mentioned, the indictment lists 6 unnamed, unindicted alleged co-conspirators. NBC News believes it has, though, uncovered most of their identities based on past reporting of actions that are described in the indictments. So who do we think they are?
I'm picking up my phone so I can read my notes here. So co-conspirator number 1, Rudy Giuliani, we believe. Number 2, John Eastman. Number 3, Sidney Powell. Number 4, Jeff Clark. And number 5, Kenneth Chesebro. I think we're unclear on number 6. So everybody knows who Rudy Giuliani is. He was President Trump's lawyer. He was integrally involved in advancing claims of fraud in the election. And in fact, his license to practice law has been suspended in both New York and D.C. because the bars there concluded that he made unsupported claims in court, claims of fraud that just didn't stand up. So that's Giuliani. John Eastman was one of the architects of what we call the fake electors plan, the plan to present alternative slates of electors in 7 contested states. He was also advising former President Trump that Vice President Mike Pence had the authority to stop the certification on January 6th, which Pence and other legal experts said was false. Jeff Clark was a lower-level Justice Department official who was trying to get the Justice Department to declare that there was fraud in the election in perhaps the most dangerous chapter of this whole plot. He wanted the Justice Department to send out a letter to various states saying, we've identified fraud. Senior DOJ officials, Trump appointees, stopped that. But nonetheless, Jack Smith has alleged that as part of the criminal conspiracy. And Kenneth Chesebro was another lawyer who was considered the architect and the father of the fake electors plan. Again, these people are unnamed. This is based on our reporting. And it's interesting that they were not charged. And as Danny says, it suggests that the special counsel wants to move this case forward as quickly as possible.
All right, Ken and Danny, thank you both.
And now let's bring in NBC News congressional correspondent Julie Sirkin for more. Hey, Julie, good morning. So House Republicans have continued to support the former president despite his legal trouble. They've also called out the Biden administration on this. Just walk us through that. What are you hearing this time from House leaders as the former president now has this 3rd indictment?
Yeah, good morning, Savannah and Joe. Well, what we're hearing is what you might expect, and similar to what we've heard before when those other 2 indictments came down, particularly when it comes to the former president's allies who are standing in his corner, like you've said, or using this moment to talk about a, quote, 2-tier system of justice. For example, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy tweeting yesterday that this is an attempt by the DOJ to, quote, distract from Hunter Biden revelations into the investigation and whatever is going on with the current president's son, something House Republicans are certainly using their political capital to look into. Just Monday, they actually heard from a Hunter Biden family associate, Devin Archer, who testified before Congress. A lot of Republicans are saying the timing of the former president's indictment here has something to do with that. Others, like, for example, Matt Gaetz, suggesting to defund special counsel Jack Smith's office entirely. And we've heard this before, but it's something that's going to keep coming up and something that will be interesting to watch as we get closer to September and that government funding fight that Speaker McCarthy is very much in the center of.
And Julie, now let's talk about the other side of this. What are you hearing from Democrats?
Yeah, well, reminder, Congress is out of session. They're all in a lengthy recess. So everything we're hearing from them comes in the form of statements and tweets. And so we heard from Leader Schumer and Leader Jeffries, the two Democratic leaders of the House and the Senate, coming out with a joint statement saying that this indictment concerning the election interference claims in January 6th is, quote, the most serious and most consequential so far. Likewise, we heard from Democrats on the January 6th Select Committee who spent a year and a half investigating the former president's conduct on that day and before that day, like Danny and Ken pointed out, which is why the public was aware of much of what is in this indictment from Jack Smith, the special counsel. Democrats are saying that this is something that needs to follow the process of the law. They are saying that no one can interfere in the investigation into this. Of course, the former president is innocent until proven guilty. But remember, Democrats, Republicans were all in the building on January 6th. So this case is slightly different than the other two indictments.
All right, Julie Sirkin, thank you so much.
Let's bring in NBC News senior political editor Mark Murray so we can discuss the indictment's impact on the 2024 race. Mark, good morning. So as we know, former Vice President Mike Pence also running for the Republican nomination against Trump. We know he has an integral part of the events on January 6th. He recently called Trump's actions on that day reckless, but said he wasn't convinced yet that they were crimes. What is he now saying about this new indictment?
Joe, he released a statement last night, a really harsh one, saying that any person who puts themselves above the Constitution does not deserve to be president. And that actually stands in sharp contrast to the reactions we ended up getting from other Republican presidential hopefuls like Ron DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy, who complained more about the Justice Department, the FBI, than they did about Donald Trump's actions. So Mike Pence with a very tough statement aimed at the person that he once served under.
Trump's legal troubles have not weakened his support, we know so far, with Republican voters. Where does his lead over his rivals stand right now? Do we have any idea how this might impact that?
Yeah, Joe, he has a commanding lead in this Republican race. According to a New York Times Siena poll that was conducted before yesterday's charges, Donald Trump had a 37-point lead over Ron DeSantis and the rest of the Republican field. That's consistent with almost all the other polling. What we have seen after the first criminal indictment that Donald Trump ended up receiving back in April, and then after the one in June, his standing has only increased over his rivals. But it remains to be seen. We have not had any polling that has been conducted after yesterday's indictment. And Joe, we just have to wait and see about reactions that Republican voters might have to this latest indictment.
You know, we know Trump has continued to campaign as these investigations into his conduct move forward. Real quickly, how much of a talking point has this become during his speeches and his fundraising pitches?
Yeah, all the multiple indictments about him have actually become big talking points. And just yesterday, the Trump campaign ended up releasing an ad that almost seemed to be willing to pre-butt the charges that they knew they were coming against them. And they actually ended up saying that this was all because of President Biden's Justice Department, that Donald Trump is leading in the polls. And this is all an effort to knock President Biden's chief rival down. Of course, you know, it is important to note that the special counsel was appointed precisely to have some type of buffer between the politics and President Biden's administration's role in this investigation.
All right, Mark, thank you so much.
Let's now bring in NBC News senior White House reporter Peter Nichols for more reaction from Washington. And I said White House correspondent, but when I say reaction, we've seen a typically muted reaction from the White House, from both the Biden campaign as well. Tell us about that.
Well, the White House has been reluctant to weigh in. Donald Trump has claimed that this is a case of election interference. The Justice Department has been weaponized by Joe Biden. And the White House doesn't want to play into that. So anything that they say is likely to be exploited by Donald Trump. And so they've been very quiet. And in doing so, they're trying to make another point that Trump brings chaos, Trump brings drama, Biden represents stability. And the thought is that after 4 years of Donald Trump, voters rejected his style of governing. Biden offers a more stable kind of model of how to manage the White House, how to run a presidency, and they think that Trump's troubles and these indictments only further Biden's argument, advance Biden's argument that he's the safer choice.
So walk us through how exactly, because I think this is an important part of this, that the Biden administration is trying to separate itself from the former president, as well as these investigations, the Justice Department, all this that he's facing.
Well, the silence you're hearing from the White House is one way they're trying to separate themselves. They don't want to put their thumb on the scale. There's a rule in politics: when your opponent is struggling, step back, let it happen. You know, don't necessarily do anything to impede that. So I think that's what we're seeing now, is the White House is just letting Donald Trump stew in his own juices here, and they're going about their business. You know, they're talking about infrastructure spending. They're talking about reduced inflation. They're talking about lower gas prices, things that affect American pocketbooks in a real way. And they think that that is a winning contrast that they can draw with Donald Trump that's effective for them.
Peter, thank you so much for your reporting this morning.
And we'll have much more on the third indictment of Donald Trump here on Morning News Now, including the historic impact of the charges and how it could shape the U.S. presidency far beyond 2024.
First, though, after the break out of control, we'll take you to the West Coast, where a fast-moving wildfire has now spread across 2 states.
And some strong summer storms in the forecast today. We'll tell you who could see hail, strong winds, as well as some heavy rain and flooding. That's coming up after the break.
We're back with more on that massive California wildfire spreading across the Mojave Desert and now moving into Nevada.
Officials say the fire was sparked by the record-breaking heat. NBC News national correspondent Miguel Almaguer has the latest.
Facing an out-of-control blaze in extreme conditions, this is the dangerous firefight for crews in California's Mojave Desert. Remote but exploding in size, the York fire has torn across 80,000 acres, the largest in the country so far this year, now spilling into Nevada.
We were pretty concerned that it could start coming down at us.
As the unusual desert blaze destroys protected Joshua trees and threatens endangered animals.
Just heartbreaking.
The erratic conditions here have created firenadoes, a vortex of swirling flames and smoke. Baking in triple digits, firefighters are battling an inferno while working inside an oven.
It gets really bad. It's hard to breathe.
If the heat wasn't enough, smoke is drifting across 2 states, smothering parts of Las Vegas, where a thick haze triggered flight delays and is impacting air quality.
Yeah, it's humid. It's hot.
For some 43 million under heat alerts, the conditions outside are stifling. In July, Phoenix averaged nearly 103 degrees, the warmest temp for any U.S. city in any year.
And across the West, the start of fire season was delayed because of our wet winter, but now conditions are prime for disaster. Back to you.
All right, Miguel Almaguer, thank you so much. Just tough to see. Well, some severe storms could be headed to the Midwest. For more details on that, let's get a check on your Morning News Now weather. Angie Lassman, good morning.
Good morning, my friend. We've got some showers, some thunderstorms that have already really become active in parts of the middle of the country. They continue to be stretching from basically Omaha all the way down through St. Louis. We're going to see this work through areas of Illinois, Kentucky, too. And we could have the potential to see some strong storms with this and some really heavy rain that leads to some flooding. So let's time it all out for you. Through the day today, it'll be the isolated storms that we'll see across parts of the upper Midwest. We'll see that heavy rain mainly centered around places like Missouri and Illinois through the afternoon hours today. And then the unsettled weather shifts to the southeast, and parts of the northeast and Midwest will still see some of that activity into tomorrow, too. When it comes to the severe weather, we're mainly, again, going to see the most active afternoon and evening potential across parts of Missouri, stretching into Illinois, and just some slivers of Kentucky. But the greatest chance is going to be for places like Columbia, St. Louis, Carbondale, all included in that this afternoon. Biggest impacts are going to be the potential for some large hail. We could see up to an inch or higher, and those wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour. The good news is tornado threat is low, but it isn't zero, so we'll still have the chance to see 1 or 2 of those, so we'll be keeping a close eye out for that. And on top of that, the heavy rain that's moving through. We're going to have repeated rounds of that heavy rain moving through with some of these thunderstorms and packing a punch. The moderate risk of flash flooding is up for places like St. Louis. Again, that same kind of area that could see the stronger storms as well, is going to see the chance for some heavy rain too that leads to flooding. And for good reason, we already have those flood watches up for a lot of folks. We do have the flash flood warnings up in parts of Missouri at this hour. That'll continue here for a little while longer. And you can see why. Rainfall amounts end up anywhere from the 3 to 4 inches in some spots across this area and stretching into the southeast through tomorrow. So we'll be closely watching this rain as we continue through the day today and into tomorrow and as we wrap up our work week. Now, heat alerts, we can't not talk about those, right? They continue for parts of the South, 45 million people included in this, and parts of the Southwest too. Phoenix, Tucson included in that. Temperatures once again headed to the triple digits in places like Texas. Oklahoma City will end up at 102. Savannah will see record highs today and potentially tomorrow in that area. It doesn't look like they're going to get a break from the heat anytime soon. Up the Midwest and the Northeast is about average, so at least the northern tier of the country.
Yeah, it's been feeling nice here, but I feel bad saying that, especially when you think about the people in Arizona. Over a month now of this.
It's been brutal.
All right, Angie, thank you so much. Let's get you some international headlines now. A powerful typhoon hit southern Japan, leaving thousands without power. NBC News foreign correspondent Raf Sanchez joins us now with the latest on that. Hi, Raf. Good morning.
Savannah, good morning. Yeah, at least one person killed and 200,000 without power after that powerful typhoon lashed southern Japan. The fatality was a 90-year-old man who reportedly died when his garage collapsed on top of him. The storm is heading away from Japan and towards China right now, though it is expected to return to Japan later in the week. Turning now to the military coup in Niger, the French armed forces have begun evacuating European citizens from the country. The first evacuation flight landed in Paris earlier today. The Pentagon has said so far it has no plans to evacuate Americans, and around 1,100 U.S. troops will remain at their bases in the country. And finally, a supermoon worthy of the gods. Stargazers from around the world gathered at the Temple of Poseidon in southern Greece yesterday to catch a glimpse of the latest supermoon. Savannah, that's a full moon that comes closest to Earth's orbit, making it look bigger and brighter than normal. And Savannah, we are spoiled this month because there is going to be a second supermoon on August 30th.
Yeah, I think, is that one the blood moon? I don't know. So cool. It's just awesome. And we're not going to get them again twice in a month for a long time. So it's very exciting. Get out there and see it.
Totally.
Raf, thank you so much.
Totally.
All right, coming up, more on the historic third indictment of Donald Trump. When we return, our coverage continues with reaction from both sides of the aisle. Plus, what is next? And big changes in the housing market when it comes to who is buying homes. We will explain next on Morning News Now. Welcome back, and let's get back to more on the fallout from the unprecedented third indictment of former President Donald Trump. In all, a federal grand jury returned 4 felony counts against him, alleging he attempted to defraud the country in an effort to overturn the 2020 election results. The sweeping indictment laid out by special counsel Jack Smith outlines Trump's alleged abuse of power in the weeks following the 2020 election, getting right to the point at the very beginning of it, saying, quote, despite having lost, the defendant was determined to remain in power. So for more than 2 months following Election Day on November 3rd, 2020, the defendant spread lies that there had been outcome determinative fraud in the election and that he had actually won. These claims were false, and the defendant knew that they were false. Trump and his lawyers deny any wrongdoing and maintain his innocence. Let's get into this with NBC's Garrett Haake and David Henderson, a civil rights attorney and former prosecutor. Good morning to you both. Garrett, I'll start with you. So Trump was quick to respond and did not hold back. Walk us through his response to all of this.
No, Savannah, the former president had a statement drafted and ready to go. I mean, this was obviously something that they'd been anticipating for a long time. It hits a lot of the highlights we're used to hearing from Donald Trump on these cases. He called it an un-American witch hunt, even compared it to prosecutions of 1930s Nazi Germany. And, you know, sort of the more substantive responses from his attorneys last night and this morning have been that what the Justice Department is trying to do here, they say, is criminalizing political speech, and that that's what they're going after him for. They also argue that everything he did in relates to this case was on advice of counsel, and that it would be very difficult to prosecute him for something that he was told by his lawyers to do. Those are arguments that'll get debated in a courtroom, but long before we get to that point, they're going to be sort of pushed out into the political sphere by Donald Trump and his allies, you know, kind of trying to throw as much shade as possible on this prosecution and on Jack Smith, the federal prosecutor behind it.
David, let me bring you in here. So the former president is scheduled to appear Thursday in federal court in D.C. That's tomorrow, of course. So, I mean, we're getting sort of familiar with these types of proceedings, what we might see, what we might not see. But tell us what to expect from that. And will it be similar to what we've seen before with Trump in Miami and in Manhattan?
Well, Savannah, the expectations for these hearings are very low. They're normally completely uneventful, and no one really cares about them except in a case that's serious. I'm dating myself with this reference, but it's the scene from My Cousin Vinny when the judge says, look, your clients are accused of a crime. All I want to hear is, are you pleading guilty? Are you pleading not guilty? So I know how to get the ball rolling with regard to the rest of the proceedings. That's about all we're going to see tomorrow, but this proceeding could interfere with the other litigation he's got going in different jurisdictions.
Garrett, let's talk about the reaction that we're seeing here, both from congressional Republicans as well as campaign rivals, and then sort of the quiet from the Biden campaign as well as White House.
Yeah, look, the Biden campaign and White House have taken a similar tactic here, which is to say, if our opponent's in trouble, we're going to stay out of it. They want to do two things. First, they want the Justice Department to appear as independent in this process as possible, and that's best achieved by them not saying anything about this. And they really don't want this to be a Joe Biden versus Donald Trump story. They want this to be a Donald Trump versus the Constitution story, and that's kind of what happens when Joe Biden stays out of it. Now, congressional Republicans in particular have been very quick to come to Donald Trump's defense, especially on the House side. That's really the base of his power in the party. We've heard from folks like Steve Scalise, Jim Jordan, even Speaker McCarthy, all putting out statements using similar language, the idea that the Justice Department has been politicized against Donald Trump, and that you're seeing that in action here. There's Steve Scalise, the #2 House Republican, making exactly this argument, even linking it to, Biden family investigations that House Republicans have been doing. What's somewhat more surprising, but probably shouldn't be at this point, is the degree to which the other Republican rivals for the presidential nomination are, rather than using this as an opportunity to distance themselves from Donald Trump or try to take him down a peg, are basically defending him. Vivek Ramaswamy said that he would pardon Donald Trump. Even Ron DeSantis, the #1 rival here, argues that this is part of the D.C. swamp going after Donald Trump. I think it'll be very difficult for his opponents to make up much political ground on Donald Trump with statements like these.
Which is just so interesting to see, since he is the front runner here. David, let's talk through what comes next in various different investigations and trials that we have going. So a New York City judge has set a March trial date for his criminal trial. This is that one about hush money payments, the charges of falsifying business records. Then he also has a trial date of May 20, 2024. That is in the classified documents case, the other federal indictment here. Could we also see this particular case go to trial before the 2024 election?
Savannah, there's always that possibility. There's no clear way to know. And the reason I say that is because there's no reason why this case should necessarily move the other trial dates. And if you're talking about a normal person, what the judges in those other cases are going to say typically is, I've already got a trial date set, and we're moving forward with my trial date. I don't necessarily care what's going on with these other cases, nor am I obligated to care. But what I've often seen happen is that judges, through unspoken and unwritten rules, will sometimes decide that, hey, the biggest case will go to trial first if that's a felony versus a misdemeanor, if that's in federal court versus state court. And here you've got someone who's accused in a democracy of depriving people of the fundamental right to vote. It's hard to argue that anything is more important than that, although all these cases are important. So it wouldn't surprise me if ultimately, through delays and setbacks, which always occur in court, this case ends up going first, but there's no reason that it has to.
David Henderson, Garrett Haake, thank you very much for helping us reset this half hour. For more on the historic impact of this indictment, let's bring in NBC News presidential historian Michael Beschloss. Michael, good morning. Always wonderful to talk to you. We appreciate you joining us. Tell us just your reaction first to yesterday's indictment. We've asked you this through each of these that we've seen, but just tell us your takeaway on this one, especially given the sort of political power that this one might pack.
Well, this is going to be a day that American children and grandchildren, our descendants, will remember, because, the big takeaway, I think, from American history is that, we have threats to our democracy from time to time. Happened from the British in 1812, from the Confederacy in 1861, from the Germans and Japanese in 1941, Osama bin Laden in 2001. Every time there were people who were saying this is the end of American democracy, it didn't happen because our system is so resilient. So I think the story of the last 12 hours is we're watching the American democracy in its righteous might, as Franklin Roosevelt would have said, rising to its feet and saying that there were serious wrongs done on January 6th that could have cost us our democracy. Let's make sure that the legal system deals with that.
Absolutely. Also, Michael, explain to us, I want to get into the potential for a pardon or what this means when the particular defendant is the former president, or, as was just pointed out to us by our friend Garrett Hake, there are his Republican rivals who are also running for the White House saying things like, I would pardon him if I took the White House. So explain to us how the Constitution addresses the power a president has, as well as what it means for a former president to be in this position.
Well, I think no human being should be above the law, and that's the story of what we're seeing this morning. And what the Constitution says is that if you're president, you have this awesome, and I don't mean that in a positive way, but this overwhelming power to wipe away a prison sentence, a conviction with a pardon. That was done by Gerald Ford, for instance, in 1974 for Richard Nixon. It could be done by a Republican successor to Donald Trump if one is elected next fall. If Trump is president himself, there are still differences among legal minds whether a president can pardon himself. But the point is that if there is a Republican president next fall elected, with all these people promising pardons of Donald Trump, if they are elected, there's a good chance that this trial could, and its verdict could go away.
As we look to the future, Michael, how do you think something like this potentially shapes, potentially impacts just the office of the presidency, even in like a symbolic way? What do you think about that?
Presidents have always tried to seize too much power. Andrew Jackson did. Certainly Richard Nixon did, almost brought this country to its knees. But if our system is working, the antibodies sort of check in. The legal system operates. Congress, however belatedly, and the American people in voting out a president who tries to be a dictator. You know, lately Donald Trump has said, and he's been very open about this, elect me president again, and I will take powers for the president that you have never seen in American history. In my view, that's out of the American tradition. It's for the voters to decide.
Michael, also, what do you think about the fact that the same person that we're talking about here, being a former president facing this third indictment now, is also the Republican frontrunner? I mean, there is a real potential for a second term of Donald Trump in the White House. And also, I think it's important just to recognize that many of our viewers, many voters in this country do still see him as the frontrunner of that party. What do you think that means?
Absolutely.
Just quickly, if you can.
Americans love our democracy. When they see someone as a threat to our democracy, sometimes belatedly, they rise to the occasion. That happened in 1941. Almost half this country was saying we don't have to fight Adolf Hitler or the Imperial Japanese. Suddenly, they got the message. I would look to history and say, you know, once again, never underestimate the power of our democratic system.
Michael Beschloss, always appreciate you. Thank you very much for always making the time to talk to us. Good to see you.
Love it. Thank you, Savannah.
Coming up, a historic settlement for the family of a black woman whose cells help shape modern medicine. We'll tell you about the deal made 70 years after her death. And new research might have you thinking twice about pouring yourself a drink. What doctors are saying about a link between alcohol and blood pressure. This is Morning News Now.
Welcome back. There are new developments this morning in the months-long Hollywood writers' strike. Overnight, the Writers Guild announced that talks between the union and production studios will resume this week. The Guild says the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, that's the group that represents the major studios, requested a meeting on Friday to pick up contract talks again. Talks between both sides broke down on May 1st, leading to the first writers' strike in 15 years. Pay rates, working conditions, streaming residuals, as well as concerns over the use of artificial intelligence. Those are all among the major sticking points in contract talks. Hollywood actors, of course, are also on strike, but there's no word this morning that those talks with the studios are scheduled to resume as well.
A little bit of good news, maybe. Well, now let's get to some money news. The UAW union is looking for double-digit pay hikes in its new contract talks with U.S. automakers.
CNBC's Bertha Coombs joins us with that and other financial headlines. Bertha, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Joe and Savannah. Yeah, unions are getting tough these days. The head of the UAW says the union is seeking double-digit pay hikes in contract talks with the big three U.S. automakers. The UAW presenting its demand to Chrysler's parent company, Stellantis, yesterday. It's going to meet with General Motors today and Ford tomorrow. The union's current contract expires in about 6 weeks in mid-September. Other proposals include making all temporary workers permanent, placing new limits on the use of temp workers altogether, and more paid time off. Meantime, Apple is looking to add more live sports to its roster and maybe targeting college football. ESPN reports the commissioner of the Pac-12 conference has presented a proposal for media rights to school presidents and chancellors. Apple is a likely leader for a deal that would start with the 2024 season. Apple currently has streaming deals with Major League Baseball and an exclusive deal with Major League Soccer. The Pac-12 is losing 3 big members, with USC and UCLA going to the Big Ten and Colorado going to the Big 12. Meantime, Tinder is preparing to launch a new high-end membership this fall and a product refreshment that is aimed at catering better to Gen Z users. Let's put it at Gen Z users with deep pockets. The new Tinder membership was confirmed earlier this year by company executives who dubbed the $500 a month offering Tinder Vault. Tinder and parent company Match Group believe there's a market for daters who are willing to pay up for quality matches and experience, including 24/7 concierge care. I don't know. I don't know how many millenniums are going to pony up $500 a month for a membership.
That's crazy.
Does dinner come with that?
Right?
Maybe you'll get a match with your concierge.
I want dinner with Idris Elba with that.
God, I love when you just expose
Every month.
who you love, Bertha. We love you. All right, thank you. Every month, she said thank you.
Every month.
Okay, now let's take a look at the housing market. International buyers are purchasing less homes in the United States.
That's according to a new report from the National Association of Realtors. Those purchases now at their lowest point in more than a decade. CNBC's senior real estate correspondent Diana Olick joins us now with a look at the numbers. So, Diana, what's behind this drop in foreign buyers purchasing homes here in America?
Well, Joe and Savannah, it's a lot of the same reasons that American buyers aren't buying as many homes this year. It's high mortgage rates, high home prices, low supply of homes for sale, and then international buyers are being hit by a strong dollar, which basically means they're getting less for their money on what they are actually buying.
Does the drop in international buyers ultimately maybe help U.S. buyers since the market has been so competitive?
You know, you'd hope that it would, but actually it probably really doesn't. And that's because while they do buy a lot of homes, it's a very small share. Actually, just between 2 and 3% of all homes are purchased by international buyers, and they do it in very specific places. So if you're in those markets, you might see a little less competition, but nationwide, I'm sorry to say, not so much, guys.
Do we know which foreign buyers are most interested in U.S. properties and why that is?
Yeah, so China, Mexico, Canada, India, and Colombia. Those were the top 5 countries for origins of buyers of existing homes. It doesn't count new construction. And a lot of it is just because they've been doing that for several years now. The Chinese buyers are very interested in education for their children, and so they like to buy homes here and have their kids come and live in them. And also Canadian buyers, it's the snowbirds. They've been doing that for years.
So where then, what locations in the U.S. are these foreign buyers looking at?
Well, so they're looking mainly, the top spots are California and Florida, and then you also have, you know, Arizona and Texas, as well as North Carolina and Illinois. But really, Florida and California have always been the hot spots for foreign buyers because they like the weather. And in California, again, it's that draw toward the top schools.
Not a lot of folks coming here and saying, like, oh, I want that winter weather way up north in northern Minnesota.
They are headed to Miami.
All right, Diana Olick, thank you so much.
Thank you. The family of Henrietta Lacks reached a settlement with a biotech firm it accused of exploiting her cells, allegedly stolen over 70 years ago. Back in 1951, doctors at Johns Hopkins Hospital harvested Lacks' cervical cells before she died of cervical cancer, allegedly without her consent. Her family sued Thermo Fisher Scientific, saying they had not received any money despite the company making billions of dollars from Lacks' cells. The family's attorney, Ben Crump, announced the settlement on Monday. Monday. He said the agreement terms were confidential, but that the parties were, quote, pleased that this could be handled outside of court.
Time now for your weekly checkup. It's that time of year again when kids will be heading back to school already, and we're going to look at the many emotions that kids face as they do return to the classroom.
Plus, how just a few minutes of a daily activity could reduce your cancer risk. That's pretty huge. NBC News medical contributor Dr. Natalie Azar joins us this morning. Hi, Dr. Azar. Always great to see you. Okay, so Joe just mentioned we're getting close to back to school. It's not quite yet. We're still hanging on to summer. Depending where you are in the country, you might still have a month or so. But what is it that kids might be facing emotionally and mental health ways when they're thinking about going back to school?
Well, so first of all, when this poll asked parents how many of their children had challenges the year before, 71% of parents said their kids had challenges the year before, which unfortunately sets up kids for having challenges again this year. And what made the top of the list for kids? Almost a third said safety. I just want to hit, that should hit home, right? I mean, when I was growing up, when you guys were growing up, safety at school was not your number one concern, right?
Not at all.
Number two was academics, and then that followed mental health concerns, bullying, those kinds of things were lower down on the list, those things that you think are traditional concerns for kids. But nonetheless, pretty startling numbers. My doctor's orders, we've said this a lot on this show and others, start a conversation with your children daily. Parents at home, caregivers, every day check in with your children. How are you feeling? What's going on? And establish routines and habits, right? One of the best things you can do to prep your kids for the upcoming school year, have a set bedtime, have a wake-up time, have a routine in terms of after-school activities, that kind of thing, to help kids stay grounded. And I want to reinforce again, check in with your kids every day.
Always good advice. So we got new data from the American Heart Association found one drink a day may have an impact on your health. What's that impact? Is it good? Is it bad? What is it?
It's not good. And I have to say, the AHA, the American Heart Association, is really clear about this. Do not, if you don't drink already, do not start drinking for your health. And if you do drink, try to cut back. So here's the data. One drink a day can increase your blood pressure. This was a study of over 19,000 adults, 7 different studies, so pretty robust methodologically. And here's the thing. How much you drink, there was a correlation with how much your blood pressure came up. Now, just to put this in terms that we can all understand, let's say you have a beer, a glass of wine, or 1 shot of alcohol. How much does that raise it? About 1.5 points. So that's, say, maybe you're going from 120 to 121. Is that a lot? Maybe not so much. But if you have more drinks, there was a correlation, right? So you have 3 to 4 drinks a day, your blood pressure is increasing by about 5 points. Now, it's not always one thing, but what if you're drinking that and maybe you're smoking and maybe you're not exercising and you're not eating well? Then I think everything in combination, it starts to make a big, big difference. Doctor's orders.
Order.
Big old order. Try a dry day, right? Anything you can do to reduce the consumption of alcohol is probably better for you in the long run. There really aren't any great health benefits.
See, sometimes, though, I feel like we do hear those studies that are like, it's...
Yeah, right.
Maybe it's not so bad. I mean, I think like the biggest one probably is with, now I can't even think of the flavanols, let's say, you know, in wine. It's like, well, get them from food sources. You know, don't reach to a glass of wine.
They say red wine is okay.
Yeah,
and, you know, 1 glass of that a day keeps the doctor. I'm just kidding.
But I hear you. But I mean, we're talking about like
That's it, right? 1 glass of wine a day keeps the doctor away.
Isn't that how the saying goes?
That's only a Savannah saying.
Okay, Dr. Azar. Last one for you. This was something we just teased. So what is this about routines, that kind of thing that can maybe help you keeping cancer
Reduce
away?
cancer. So I think like the easiest analogy to think is how we talk a lot about high intensity interval training, right?
Okay.
So these are short bursts of stuff that you do at home, 1 to 2 minutes, but maybe a minimum of 4.5 minutes a day. Listen to this new acronym. It's called VILPA, Vigorous Intermittent Lifestyle Physical Activity. So we're not talking about getting on a treadmill. We're talking about things like cleaning, grocery shopping, power walking.
Wow.
4.5 minutes a day could decrease the risk of up to 32% for certain cancers that are related to physical activity, specifically breast, endometrial, colon cancer, and again, tiny little blasts. And let's put that graphic again up, because I think I kind of got to it a little early. Things as little as like cleaning or grocery shopping, carrying heavy bags up like little.
Wow.
I know. So this isn't like supposed to be in lieu of exercise.
Okay.
But I think it should make people feel good, especially, people who do housework. We all do housework, even if we're working full time. Everyone's doing it. It probably could have some health benefit, those little short bursts of exercise.
I totally feel.
Your house is clean.
Yeah.
And your house is
when
clean.
I grocery shop and then in New York City, you walk home a lot of times with your bags. When I'm carrying those, I am always like, this is a workout.
Well, it is. It is for your
There you
cancer
go.
risk.
All
See,
right.
that is a Savannah lesson we can all
There we
take.
go.
There you go.
Don't you love my advice? Dr. Azar, thank you so much. Great to see you. Coming up, a special slim on a historic anniversary.
Up next, how the Kennedy family is honoring the late JFK 80 years after he swam to save his own life and the lives of 10 others. Welcome back. For Space Geeks, there are streaming services that can take you to infinity and beyond in the final frontier. Now there's one devoted to the real thing. NASA has announced it's coming out with its own new streaming service later this summer. It's called NASA Plus, of course, and it will feature original video series and live streams of NASA missions. And the good news is that NASA Plus is totally free with no ads. Users will be able to stream it via Apple TV, Fire TV, Roku, as well as on the iOS and Android NASA app. So the sky is the limit.
We can't pay for one more streaming service, so great news that it's free. All right, this morning, members of the Kennedy family took part in a special event to mark a dramatic moment in the life of John F. Kennedy. This is the 80th anniversary of the sinking of President Kennedy's patrol torpedo boat and his rescue, a survival story that made front-page news and was later made into a popular book and movie. NBC News foreign correspondent Kelly Kobaya joins us now from London with more. Hey, Kelly, good morning.
Good morning to you, Savannah. Yeah, for 7, almost 8 days after their boat was struck, President Kennedy, then Lieutenant Kennedy, did everything he could to save his crew, not only from the enemy, but also from starvation on this remote set of Solomon Islands. Now, his daughter, Ambassador Caroline Kennedy, and her son, Jack, have returned to the Solomon Islands to recreate one of his many swims for help and to say thank you.
Ready? Ready? This morning, Ambassador Caroline Kennedy following in her father's wake with her son Jack. Gliding through the same waters then Navy Lieutenant John F. Kennedy swam to save his own life and the lives of 10 others 80 years ago.
It was just amazing, and I think it really gave me a renewed appreciation for the heroism of my father and his crew, and also the Solomon Scouts who rescued him. And it was especially meaningful to do it with Jack.
On the pitch black night of August 1st, 1943, Kennedy's PT-109 was slammed by a Japanese destroyer. The boat split in two. The crew scattered. 2 were never found. The rest swam to an island some 3 miles away. Their epic tale made into a movie.
I think we can make it.
Kennedy, a former Harvard swimmer, towing an injured sailor the entire way.
The swim was pretty difficult, I will say that. And so I have a lot of appreciation and admiration for what my grandfather did and the perseverance it must have taken to survive.
For 7 days, Lieutenant Kennedy and his crew, thirsty and starving, were losing hope when they came into contact with 2 local Solomon men who offered to carry an SOS to Allied forces. Grabbing a coconut, Kennedy carved, "Native knows position. He can pilot. 11 alive. Needs small boat. Kennedy." Ambassador, tell me about the coconut, because President Kennedy kept it, didn't he?
He did. It's kind of amazing that it did survive, but he kept it on his desk in the White House. And I think probably to remind him how fortunate he was to have been rescued and what leadership really means.
After their rescue, Lieutenant Kennedy was awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Medal, along with the Purple Heart.
It's really a story of great courage and skill and bravery on all sides.
What I kept thinking about was I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for the courage of Solomon Scouts. One person or a group of people really can make a difference.
As for those local Solomon men, Ambassador Kennedy and her son Jack were welcomed by their children and grandchildren. One of their sons given the name John F. Kennedy. Ambassador Kennedy and her son both paying tribute to the Islanders.
It's been a great mix of family history, lots of fun and emotion, and some serious work as well.
I've been training all my life for this moment. So happy to be able to do it with my mother, who beat me in the race, I might add.
That race was about 3/4 of a mile. They swam for about 30 minutes, and they said the biggest danger to them was a bunch of jellyfish. Jack said he did get a little sting, but Savannah, when you consider that they were warned about crocodiles and sharks, I think they got away lightly.
Yeah, really. Wow, what an incredible story. Kelly, thank you so much.
And that's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
But the news continues right now. Stay with us. Good morning, I'm Savannah Sellers.
I'm Joe Fryer. Right now on Morning News Now, indicted again. This morning, former President Donald Trump is facing 4 new criminal counts, including conspiracy to defraud the United States. The 45-page federal indictment outlining his alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Special counsel Jack Smith calling it an assault on democracy fueled by lies.
At obstructing a bedrock function of the U.S. government, the nation's process of collecting, counting, and certifying the results of the presidential election.
We have team coverage this morning on the new charges, the reaction from the former president, and where the case goes from here. Also this morning, first appearance. The suspected Gilgo Beach serial killer appears before a judge as prosecutors reveal the new evidence in the case. Among that evidence, thousands of photos and DNA reports. Prosecutors say this is only the beginning. Plus, downgrade. The U.S. knocked from its top-tier credit status by ratings agency Fitch. The move coming in the wake of the latest debt ceiling standoff in Washington. We're diving into what it means for the economy and your bottom line. Good to have you with us on this busy news day. We begin this hour with the fallout from the new sweeping indictment against former President Donald Trump.
A federal grand jury in Washington returned 4 charges in all against him, including conspiracy to defraud the United States. The wide-ranging investigation, led by special counsel Jack Smith, has been looking at the former president's alleged attempts to overturn the 2020 election. Trump is now set to appear in court this week to formally face those charges. And this morning, we're hearing from the Trump legal team. Attorney John Lauro discussed the charges the former president is facing earlier on Today.
I want to get to all the evidence. I want to have a chance to present our case to a jury. This is the first time that the First Amendment has been criminalized. It's the first time that a sitting president is attacking a political opponent on First Amendment grounds and basically making it criminal to state your position.
We have full coverage of all of it this morning. NBC News Chief White House correspondent Kristen Welker is standing by, along with former federal prosecutor Cynthia Oxney. But we begin with NBC's Garrett Hake. Garrett, good morning.
This new indictment lays out in detail what prosecutors say was a series of conspiracies, all led by Mr. Trump, to try to overturn the results of the 2020 election. It's conduct that already led to his second impeachment and now his third indictment. The former president commanded to appear before a judge here tomorrow.
This morning, Donald Trump accused of grave offenses against the country he once led and the Constitution he swore to protect. The former president indicted by a federal grand jury on 4 felony counts, accused of conspiring to overturn the 2020 election he lost to President Joe Biden. That effort, according to special counsel Jack Smith, culminating in the January 6th attack on the Capitol.
Described in the indictment, it was fueled by lies. Lies by the defendant, targeted at obstructing a bedrock function of the U.S. government, the nation's process of collecting, counting, and certifying the results of the presidential election.
The sweeping 45-page indictment charges the former president with conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against people's right to vote and have their votes counted. Prosecutors say despite losing the election, Mr. Trump was, quote, determined to remain in power and spread lies that he had actually won. But prosecutors say Mr. Trump knew those claims were false. The indictment outlining that the former president was told there was no evidence of election fraud by key officials, including the vice president, Justice Department leaders, the director of national intelligence, and even state courts. Mr. Trump, prosecutors say, deliberately disregarded the truth.
We will never give up. We will never concede.
Prosecutors say the former president launched a, quote, criminal scheme shortly after Election Day. joined by 6 unnamed and unindicted co-conspirators, including attorneys and officials. One appears to be Rudy Giuliani, whose attorney said Mr. Trump was acting in good faith. The former president defiant, dismissing the charges, asking on his social media platform, quote, "Why didn't they bring this ridiculous case 2.5 years ago? They wanted it right in the middle of my campaign. That's why." The former president's top 2024 rival, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, tweeting, "One of the reasons our country is in decline is the politicization of the rule of law." But Mr. Trump's former vice president, Mike Pence, says the indictment, quote, "serves as an important reminder. Anyone who puts himself over the Constitution should never be president of the United States." According to the indictment, Pence took contemporaneous notes of his conversations with Trump in the run-up to January 6th. Those notes now in the special counsel's possession.
The judge overseeing this case will be Tanya Chutkan, a former public defender and Obama appointee. She's become known for handing down sentences to January 6th defendants that are even harsher than what prosecutors have requested.
All right, Garrett, thank you.
Let's bring in NBC News Chief White House correspondent Kristen Welker and MSNBC legal analyst and former prosecutor Cynthia Oxney. Kristen, we just heard about some of Mike Pence's testimony. What more did we learn about the role Pence played both during the January 6th riots and after, and what impact might this have on his presidential campaign?
Well, we'll have to wait and see, but one of the notable features that came out of this indictment was the fact that Mike Pence was among those who was around the president and effectively making the case to him that there was no fraud and that he should stop alleging that and effectively trying to get his voters to believe that. And so that will undoubtedly be a part of any case that goes to trial. In terms of the impact on his presidential campaign, look, he came out yesterday, Joe, with some of his strongest statements yet, effectively saying that someone who is guilty of what is alleged in that indictment should not be able to hold office in the United States. So that is a significant escalation, if you will, in tone by the former vice president. Look, he is polling in the low single digits, not clear he's going to make the debate even. And so the question becomes, how long will his campaign actually be in play? And is this a moment when he can potentially revive it if he does, in fact, start to say some of the things that he's put out in written statements?
And then, Kristen, let's talk about the former president himself, what this looks like in terms of his campaign. We've seen each of these indictments actually be big fundraising moments for him. We have not seen any type of dent in his support. We're seeing T-shirts being sold, "I stand with Trump." I mean, how is this helping or hurting? It doesn't look like we're really seeing much hurt in polling, but how is this impacting his campaign?
It's a really interesting question, Savannah, because you're absolutely right. On the one hand, we've seen spikes in fundraising after the first two indictments, $4 million after the first, about 1.3 after the second. We've also seen a spike in his legal fees, though.
Yeah.
So we have learned this week that his super PAC doled out about $20 million in legal fees, and that's more than they brought in. So that's part of this double-edged sword that you're seeing. But you're absolutely right. When you look at his polling, it is just ironclad, and it seems to only be getting stronger. Some 71% of GOP voters say they don't believe that the former president committed a crime. And his lead nationally over his nearest GOP rival, Ron DeSantis, is a whopping 37 points. So it just goes to show you when it comes to the primary, he's still in an incredibly strong position. But of course, and we continue to say this, things get a lot murkier in the general election where he's running neck and neck with President Biden and where polls show Mr. Biden does have a lead in some key groups, including independents, African-American women voters and young voters, guys.
Cynthia, let's bring you in here. We are in this unprecedented territory. A former president who is running for president again, now facing two different federal cases against him. What does the law tell us? Can those cases have any impact on whether he runs for office or becomes president again?
No, he can run for office. He can be convicted and he can serve from jail. So no, he can definitely run and obviously will and will go forward no matter what the results are. But one of the interesting things that I think's come out this week that I think we should highlight, and that is that the defense that's come out from the president very quickly in the last 24 hours is this First Amendment defense. And what's interesting about that is it assumes that the indictment really was going to focus on the ellipse and his speech on the ellipse and what happened afterwards with the insurrection. And that's not what the indictment did. The indictment focused much more on the fake elector scandal, the Department of Justice attempted takeover, the pressure on Pence, and the whole disinformation campaign. And you get a sense that maybe the Trump team was a little taken off guard because the First Amendment defense really won't work on all those other cases that have been charged in this indictment.
But Cynthia, also our viewers may have seen, if they've looked at the indictment themselves or heard from us, that the fact that this indictment, the actual document, actually acknowledges that Trump had the right to lie about the election results, had the right to challenge the results by filing lawsuits, essentially acknowledging those First Amendment rights. So how is it that that was acknowledged, but then also that the grand jury ultimately ends up with this indictment? Just explain that piece.
Oh, well, he brings forward what is the American law, which is, of course, he has a right to say whatever he wants. But there's a difference from saying, like, let's take it as a bank robbery. Let's say you have your money in a bank and you have a dispute with the bank. You can go out front and say, the bank has my money, the bank has my money, I want my money back, that's my money, that's my money. But you can't go in and rob the bank. And what this indictment is saying, he was allowed to dispute the election. He could go to the courts. He could say whatever he wanted. But he wasn't allowed to set up fake electors. He wasn't allowed to try to take over the Department of Justice in an illegal manner. He wasn't allowed to pressure Mike Pence to do something he knew was illegal. So that's the interplay. There's one thing about being able to speak, and it's another thing that if your action is illegal. What's hidden in this defense is his best defense is actually that lawyers told him he could do this. That's his best defense. Those are all his co-conspirators. They're all a bunch of lawyers. They're not good lawyers, but that's his best defense. And the problem with that defense is he has to take the stand in order to put it into evidence. He has to get on the stand and say, I relied on these people. And there is no way in God's green earth that he is ever going to get on the stand. I mean, this is a guy who wouldn't even get on the stand in the Carroll case. He certainly isn't going to get on a stand on this case where there's his liberty is at stake. So he's in a rock and a hard place. Jack Smith has put him there.
All right. Kristen Welker, Cynthia Oxney, thank you both for joining us. We appreciate it. Turning now to new developments in the Gilgo Beach murder case, suspected serial killer Rex Heuermann appeared in court yesterday for the first time since pleading not guilty.
At Tuesday's hearing, prosecutors revealed that they had discovered massive amounts of evidence from their search at his home. NBC News senior national correspondent Stephanie Gosk joins us now with more.
Hey there. In court, Rex Heuermann showed little emotion. His attorney says he maintains his innocence and they're prepared to go to trial while prosecutors continue to gather what the district attorney calls a massive amount of evidence from the 13-year investigation.
Inside a Long Island courtroom Tuesday, Rex Heuermann, the 6'5" accused serial killer, handcuffed, standing silently as victims' family members looked on. The hearing was brief, lasting less than 10 minutes, as prosecutors discussed sharing mountains of evidence with the defense. According to the DA, the new material includes 8 terabytes of data on 4 hard drives, with thousands of photos, autopsies, surveillance footage, and DNA reports.
You're talking about 13 years worth of investigation. It is a massive amount of material.
And that's just the beginning, according to prosecutors, who say the investigation is ongoing and more will be turned over on a rolling basis. The court appearance comes after investigators spent nearly 2 weeks combing through Heuermann's home, removing truckloads of possible evidence, including nearly 300 guns stored in a walk-in vault. Photos from inside the house obtained by the New York Post appear to show how extensive the search was. Heuermann's wife, Asa Ellerup, revealing to the Post investigators even removed a piece of the family's bathtub. As the attorney for Heuermann's children released a statement Tuesday criticizing police for the state their home was left in, writing, "The deplorable conditions they are now left to live in after the roughshod, wholesale upending of their home by police investigators is absolutely unacceptable." Rex Heuermann will remain behind bars, held without bail, facing 3 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of 3 young women killed over a decade ago. His attorney says the 59-year-old maintains his innocence and won't take a plea deal.
There have been hundreds, if not thousands, of leads in this case. They very well could have the wrong guy.
Heuermann also remains the main suspect in the disappearance of a 4th woman.
This is the first step in the process of proving those allegations.
Sherman's next court appearance is in late September. With evidence still coming in and possible additional charges, it could be a while before this case goes to trial. Back to you.
All right, Stephanie, thank you so much.
This morning, we're remembering New Jersey's Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver. Oliver's family announced that she died yesterday after she was rushed to the hospital on Monday for an undisclosed medical issue. Oliver was a trailblazer in the state. She was elected Lieutenant Governor in 2017, along with her running mate, Governor Phil Murphy, and won re-election in 2021. Before that, she served for more than 15 years in the state legislature, and in 2010, she became the first black woman to lead the predominantly male state assembly. Oliver was 71.
All right, well, heat alerts are still in effect across the country. Let's look at how they might be impacting your area.
Meteorologist Angie Lastman joins us with the latest forecast. Angie, good morning.
Good morning, guys. We've still got heat alerts for more than 40 million people, and most of that is centered across parts of the South. It does include places like Phoenix and Tucson in the Southwest, but we really still continue to see places like Dallas, Shreveport, New Orleans, all under these heat alerts through the rest of your day today. Temperatures, once again, headed to the triple digits. We'll see Dallas head to 106, 105 for San Angelo, El Paso running 8 degrees above normal later today with a high of 101. And we could potentially see some records across this area, not just today, but into tomorrow, too. You can see not a lot of change with those temperatures. Still 105 for Dallas as we get into tomorrow's temperatures, 99 for Baton Rouge. So we'll hang out in that same kind of area with triple-digit temperatures and feels like temperatures even warmer than that. So another day where you need to take those necessary precautions, especially if you live in some of those bigger cities. We have what's going on. We have what's called basically an urban heat island going on. This is where you see things like asphalt, buildings, all of that kind of dark material that we see in really populated cities that is absorbing the heat and re-emitting it, making it a little warmer than what we normally see, especially if you go into rural areas. So you'll notice places with trees and greenery, those are a little cooler outside of the city. So just be aware if you live in somewhere like Austin, Houston, San Antonio, Dallas, you'll see temperatures running a little warmer than if you were outside of the city. For example, New York City runs about 7 degrees warmer in the summertime versus other places outside of the city. And that's kind of the range that we're in for places like Dallas, 7.7 degrees hotter than the surrounding rural areas. Austin, similar kind of range, and San Antonio too. So just a little FYI on that. We also have those gusty winds, low humidity, and of course the hot temperatures playing a role in the fire weather through the day today. Dallas, Waco, Brady, Wichita Falls, all in that elevated risk for seeing fire development. So limiting anything that could cause fires is going to be a really good idea through the afternoon hours today. And of course, we have the showers, the thunderstorms that we're tracking through the middle of the country, stretching right now through places like Nebraska, into Missouri, into parts of Illinois, and eventually through Kentucky, too, will be included in this. This is going to bring us some heavy rainfall, maybe needed rainfall in some spots, but still the repeated rounds are going to make it tough to not see some flooding. And we do have a concern for flash flooding, and flood watch is already in effect in some spots. It does include much of that same area. Again, those same 3 states that we're going to be watching, Missouri, Illinois, and Kentucky, with the multiple rounds of rain and those flooding concerns with anywhere from 1 to 2 inches, of course, possible. But look where you see some of the reds. That's 3 inches, and we could see isolated amounts up to 4 inches. That goes for places around St. Louis and stretching into Asheville. So just an FYI for folks across that area. We also are going to additionally see that chance to see some stronger storms. Again, same area. This is really where we're going to be keeping a close eye through the afternoon and even evening hours today. The good news is the tornado threat is fairly low. It isn't zero. We're still going to have a chance to see maybe 1 or 2 tornadoes in this same kind of area, including Columbia, St. Louis, Carbondale, but we'll mainly be looking at hazards, including some strong wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour, as well as that isolated hail, maybe an inch or larger. The threat, as far as the severe weather is concerned, into tomorrow will shift a little farther to the east. It'll bring some unsettled rain and kind of thunderstorm activity to parts of the southeast, guys, and maybe a few showers to parts of the Midwest as we head into our day tomorrow.
All right. Thank you so much, Angie.
Thanks, Angie. Coming up, it is the story brewing up controversy online. Is this a bear? Or is it a person in a bear?
She's wondering if I'm a bear.
Yeah, I know. Let's get the video up here. Or is it a person in a bear costume? We are hearing from the zoo where it lives.
But first, the Pope makes his first overseas trip after major surgery. We're on the ground in Portugal with the visit and the disturbing new revelations coming out of the country. This morning, bail has been denied for a South Carolina woman accused of driving drunk and killing a newlywed bride and seriously injuring her husband. NBC News correspondent Sam Brock has the latest on the legal developments in this case. Sam, good morning.
Joe, good morning. On its face, this was a simple bail hearing, as you said, for the accused Jamie Lee Komorowski. The judge denying that bond of $100,000, saying that she was a flight risk. But beneath that, Joe, what happened inside of the courtroom was also a window into the trauma and the horror experienced by two families whose lives will never be the same again.
In a deeply emotional court hearing packed with loved ones, two families.
I wouldn't want anybody else to go through this. It's torn apart our family.
One stricken by grief from an unthinkable tragedy.
She didn't just kill my daughter. She killed all of us.
Another pleading for forgiveness and asking the judge for mercy.
I will take full responsibility and commit myself and dedicate myself to making sure that we've all made all the rules put upon her.
Jamie Lee Komorowski, seen on video conference in a striped jumpsuit, periodically crying from the Charleston County Detention Center where she's being held. She faces multiple felony charges, including reckless homicide. Komorowski is accused of crashing her car into a golf cart carrying Samantha Miller, killing the 34-year-old new bride instantly and seriously injuring her husband, Eric, and two others as well. The catastrophic crash happening just a short time after the couple was married. Authorities say Komorowski had a blood alcohol level more than 3 times the legal limit.
I would give anything to hug my daughter again. I just wish and pray that we all do the right thing.
The judge denied the bond due to a perceived flight risk. The wedding day tragedy unfolding this past April with Miller dead at the scene in her wedding dress, leaving not just her family, but her entire community devastated.
It's just as hard to stand here today, only 3 months later. Every day, when the sirens go off, and I think about that time running down the street, screaming my sister's name.
Seeking her release. Komorowski's attorneys had been seeking her release on bond because they said she was trying to get treatment for alcohol addiction. As far as the judge is concerned, he said she can be held until March of 2024, Joe. Then if that trial is not started by that point, she is able to secure a $150,000 bond with GPS monitoring and a device to detect alcohol use. Joe and Savannah.
All right, Sam, thank you so much.
Well, Pope Francis is in Portugal this morning to participate in World Youth Day. The festival kicked off yesterday and is one of the largest gatherings of young Catholics. NBC News foreign correspondent Claudia Lavanga joins us from Lisbon with more on this. Hey, Claudia, great to see you. So this is the Pope's first overseas trip since he had that intestinal surgery back in June. So just overall, how is his health? Should we take this trip as a sign that he's doing well?
Hey, Savannah. Well, this was the first opportunity for many of us journalists to see how well he's recovered since that abdominal surgery. And on the way, on the flight from Rome here to Lisbon, as per tradition, he walked to the back of the plane where us journalists are sitting to greet us one by one. Well, he was visibly limping through the aisle with the help of a walking stick with a cane. But that has been a problem for him for months now, long before that surgery. And overall, he looked fine. He looked well, both health-wise and also in his spirit. We did ask him how he was feeling, and he, as he's done many times, he joked about it and he said, well, I'm still alive. But he also said that he thinks that he will return from World Youth Day here in Portugal back to the Vatican rejuvenated. And I believe that because when he's in the presence of young people, wherever I've traveled around the world with him, he really looks like he's really taking that positive energy back with him to the Vatican, Savannah.
That's pretty cool. Claudia, also some of your positive energy. I think that video we just saw was you meeting him, which is pretty neat. I'm sure you have before, but just this video right here of you two interacting is pretty cool. Tell us also about this event that he's attending in Lisbon. What is he doing there exactly?
Well, despite the name, World Youth Day, this is a week-long celebration of all things Catholic. So the Pope is going to spend a lot of time with these hundreds of thousands of young pilgrims who traveled here from around the world. He's going to say Mass. He's going to attend the Way of the Cross. He's going to travel on Saturday to the pilgrimage site of Fatima. But also, and very importantly, he will also find the time to meet with some victims of sexual abuse by the clergy here, Savannah.
Yeah, Claudio, that's actually exactly what I want to ask about. I mean, this does come just months after a Portuguese commission revealed that more than 4,800 children were sexually abused by members of the Portuguese Catholic Church over the past 70 years. You mentioned he's having some meetings about that, speaking with victims. But how much of a shadow really does this cast over this, and how else do you think the Pope will actually address it?
Well, it was quite shocking because this report came out on February and it was commissioned by the church in Portugal. And they were even surprised at how big of the scale this problem was, at least since the 1950s. Now, they found that almost 5,000 children since 1950, aged 10 to 14, were sexually abused by the clergy, mainly priests, here in Portugal. So the fact that the Pope now is meeting with, for the first time, of course, since that report came out, with some of this crime, of course, is of major importance for reconciliation also here between the Portuguese and the Catholic Church itself, Savannah.
Claudio, thank you so much. See you soon.
Now to the latest out of Ukraine. The port city of Odessa was hit by another Russian attack.
NBC News foreign correspondent Raf Sanchez is back with that and other world news. Hey, Raf.
Hey, Savannah. Hey, Joe. Yeah, Russian forces once again targeting the southern port city of Odessa with attack drones. Ukrainian authorities say there were no casualties, but there was damage to the port and grain storage facilities. Russia's invasion has strangled Ukraine's wheat and grain exports, damaging the Ukrainian economy, but also raising food prices worldwide. In Brazil, 4 stowaways have been rescued after spending an astonishing 14 days at sea, crammed into a tiny space above the rudder of a cargo ship. The men, all from Nigeria, ran out of food and water after 10 days, and they wouldn't have lasted much longer if they weren't found by Brazilian federal police. 2 of them have sought asylum in Brazil. The others were returned to Nigeria. And finally, this Filipino couple were determined to get married come hell or high water. The pair went ahead with their wedding ceremony despite heavy flooding in their hometown. By the time they reached the church, the water was up to their knees, but they went down the aisle anyway, soaked wedding dress and all. So the power of love, guys, you love to see it.
Wow. They're like, we're not getting this deposit back.
Really,
We're
yeah.
going through with this.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, happy for them that got to go forward, but wow, says something, too, about the flooding that we're seeing everywhere.
Yep. All right, Raf, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Turning now to a bizarre story that has got many people wondering whether a certain bear in a Chinese zoo has the so-called bear necessities.
Video footage of a sun bear has gone viral after it appeared to look like a person in a costume, but zoo officials have denied those rumors. Janice, NBC News correspondent Janice Paggi-Freyer joins us now. Janice, I'm obsessed with this story. Is it real? Is it not? Can we confirm? What's happening?
Well, you're not alone with that obsession. People are fascinated with this sun bear in China, who many think is actually a person in a really ill-fitting bear suit. So the big question, is it a fake bear? That is the real debate. That has zoo officials reassuring the world of the bare facts. This morning, a zoo in eastern China is getting a lot of attention because of a video and a single burning question. Is this sun bear, named Angela, really a bear? Or is that a human in disguise? Look closer. The straight posture, that saggy skin. Is she waving?
Hello! It's quite a unique behaviour to sun bears. Not a lot of other bears stand on their back legs as often.
And few bears have clawed their way to internet fame quite like Angela, who went viral when a video showing her odd stance was posted to Chinese social media. The viral video has forced zoo officials to bear all, with a tongue-in-cheek statement on Angela's behalf. Some people thought the way I stand up looks too human, the statement said. So I will stress again, I'm a sun bear. We asked the zoo's deputy director about all the talk of fakes. 所以真的不是假的。 I promise it's real, he said. Seeing is believing. People can come and see for themselves. Experts explain that Malaysian sun bears, with their orange or creamy colored chest fur, are much smaller and slimmer than, say, a grizzly, and have huge claws for climbing. As for the baggy pants,
the extra skin's a really important adaptation for sun bears, so it's actually to avoid predators.
attendance at the zoo has jumped by 30%, thanks to people scrambling to catch a glimpse of Angela and bear witness to all the hype.
It's the slouchy skin that has people doubting that Angela is the real deal. So on that, the zoo's deputy director told me that we have to bear in mind, that some bears walk on all fours. And when they stand up, their skin is going to naturally gather a bit and look like a pair of wrinkled pants. And those are the facts.
There we go. My goodness. It's when it waves that gets me. Where it's like,
but when
it's like,
you see her sit and move up, she looks bear-like.
Yeah,
Like that doesn't look like some human could rehearse that.
Yes.
So I don't know. Yeah, and jumping by 30% attendance at that zoo. Angela's
best
famous.
advertising they could have gotten.
Angela's famous. All right,
and
Janice.
now we all know about sun bears.
Thank you. All right, coming up, we're staying on top of this major developing story. Former President Donald Trump criminally indicted for a third time.
We're going to dig into the 45-page document, what we've learned, and what comes next in this ongoing investigation. We are back with the latest developments this morning in the third indictment of former President Donald Trump. The sweeping federal indictment handed out yesterday was the culmination of a months-long investigation into his actions following the 2020 election.
Special counsel Jack Smith announced the 4 counts against Trump yesterday, with charges that include conspiring to defraud the United States government. Trump has denied any wrongdoing. Smith says he's pushing to have this case heard as soon as possible.
My office will seek a speedy trial so that our evidence can be tested in court and judged by a jury of citizens.
NBC News Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Delaney, as well as NBC News legal analyst Charles Coleman, join us now for more on this. Hello to both of you. Ken, I'll start with you. So let's talk about these 4 specific counts that Trump faces. Walk us through the allegations that prosecutors have laid out in this indictment.
Good morning, Savannah and Joe. It's a pretty clear-cut indictment. It does not accuse former President Trump of inciting the January 6th riot or of insurrection, of seditious conspiracy, some of the charges we've seen levied against some of the actual rioters. It accuses him of a conspiracy to defraud the United States, as you said, obstruct the official proceeding of Congress on January 6th, and deprive voters of their rights. And what it says is that he engaged in a series of lies, and more than that, he acted on those lies, that the election was stolen when he knew that the election was not stolen and was told repeatedly that his claims of fraud were bogus. Now, what's interesting about this case is that the facts really are not in dispute. The actions, they're well documented in text messages and emails and testimony. The real dispute is going to be Donald Trump's state of mind. His lawyers are already saying that part of his defense is going to be he was acting in good faith. He really believed the election was stolen, and he was acting on those beliefs. And the special counsel is going to present a lot of evidence to the contrary, and may also present a theory in the law known as willful blindness, where there's so much evidence that a thing is true that you can't argue that you thought the thing was false. And then this case may also hinge on a series of legal interpretations that will go up to the appeals court. So we're only at the beginning here, a very substantive 45-page indictment.
So, Charles, one of the big headlines here is these alleged co-conspirators who were not charged on Tuesday. They're not named in the indictment, but 5 of them can be identified using some of the detailed descriptions provided by prosecutors. Do you think we could see more charges come down against others down the road?
Well, Joe, I do think that that's very likely, and it's one of the most interesting things that I thought was in the indictment was this notion of these co-conspirators that everyone was pretty much able to identify pretty much by name as soon as you started to read the indictment. And one of the reasons that this is significant is because Donald Trump, for his entire career, has been able to do what he's been able to do, in large part due to an incredible sense of loyalty by those who he's been surrounded as co-conspirator 1, which we know is Rudolph Giuliani, co-conspirator 2, which we know is John Eastman, co-conspirator 3, which we know is Sidney Powell. When you see that happen over and over again, what it begins to tell you is that these people have provided Jack Smith and the DOJ with information that is assisting their prosecution of Donald Trump. That's a very bad sign for the former president, and he's in serious trouble with this indictment.
Ken, let's go back to you. U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan set to oversee this case. What do we know about her?
Judge Chutkan was appointed to the bench by President Barack Obama in 2013. Savannah, she was born in Jamaica. She spent time as a D.C. public defender, which is not a common background for a federal judge, also as a corporate lawyer. And interestingly, she's the only judge on the D.C. bench that has sentenced January 6th defendants in excess of the prosecutor's recommendation. And also, she was part of she engaged in a very important ruling in this January 6th investigation, ruling that former President Trump had to turn over hundreds of documents to the January 6th committee. So no doubt Trump supporters will point to that ruling and point to her background. But she's a judge that is believed to be in a position to speed this case along, guys.
All right, Ken Delaney and Charles Coleman, thank you both. Appreciate it. Coming up, credit downgrade. The U.S. loses its prestigious top-tier credit rating from Fitch.
NBC News data and business reporter Brian Chung is here to help us break down what's behind the move and what it means for your wallet. Up next.
We're back now with some financial news. Meta platforms now blocking news content for Canadian users.
CNBC's Bertha Coombs is back with that and other money news. Hey, Bertha, good morning.
Hey, Joe and Savannah. Meta Platforms has started the process of blocking access to news articles on Facebook and Instagram for all users in Canada. The move is in response to a new law there requiring internet platforms like Google and Meta to pay news publishers for their content. Google has argued, meantime, that the law is broader than similar legislation passed in Europe and Australia, as it puts a price on links displayed in search results and can apply to outlets that don't actually produce news. Meta has said news articles make up less than 3% of the content on users' feeds. Meantime, Walmart tops the Fortune 500 list this year for the 10th straight year. The retailer has claimed that #1 spot, and the 18th time since 1995. There are about 136 U.S. companies on the list, the most for any standalone country. Fortune ranks the world's largest corporation based on annual revenue. Walmart is followed by energy giant Saudi Aramco, China's State Grid, Amazon, and China National Petroleum in the top 5. And if you didn't hit the Mega Millions drawing last night, well, you know, we're all in pretty good company on that. But Krispy Kreme is offering some consolidation all day today. Customers can bring a Mega Millions ticket from Tuesday's drawing or a losing ticket from any other lottery to a location near them for a free original glazed donut. The offer is limited to 1 freebie per customer while supplies last. Krispy Kreme says it wants everyone to win some dough.
Oh, that's
See what they
cute.
did there? Little dough.
And then the next drawing, we can talk about how many Krispy Kreme donuts you could buy with $1 billion
we have to,
dollars.
you know, put in perspective with a different type of item every time there's a big lottery. Thanks, Bertha.
Thank you, Bertha. Ratings agency Fitch has downgraded the United States credit rating from AAA to AA+.
Yeah, in part, the company cited the repeated last-minute debt ceiling negotiations for the downgrade. Here to help us understand what that all means is NBC News business and data reporter Brian Chung. Brian, good morning. Great to see you. So first, just walk us through these reasonings that this happened. Why?
Yeah, well, I think we even need to back up a little farther and just say what is a credit rating in the first place, right? Essentially, what it is that it's a gauge of how reliable any entity, a company or a government in this case, is in paying back their bills on time and in full. And there are 3 major credit ratings agencies that do this. One of them last night decided that they didn't want to give the United States the most pristine rating anymore, which is a AAA. They downgraded the U.S. to a AA+. The reason being, well, they said the debt ceiling debacle from about 2 months ago underscores the risk that in the future there could be more gridlock in Washington that would lead to the United States not being able to pay its bills, which was a serious risk in the later parts of May before they had that last-minute agreement between Speaker McCarthy and the White House to ultimately get something done to raise the debt ceiling and then make sure that they could keep the lights on. So this is something that's very much a financial market headwind here. Potentially stock markets and bond markets could sell off as a result of this. We don't really know. It depends on how much people hold water in Fitch's kind of credit ratings.
I guess it's the question for those of us who don't follow it that closely. What are the implications of having a downgrade like this, and how are the markets responding to it?
Yeah, well, I mean, for right now, we're looking at markets. There's nothing crazy volatile happening. We'll have to see when the market opens what it looks like. But look, at the end of the day, for average Americans, this isn't going to dramatically impact you on your day-to-day, at least immediately. The reason being is that, well, okay, yeah, this could in theory lead to higher borrowing costs, but the bigger story has really been the Federal Reserve raising interest rates to take care of inflation. This could be something that might marginally tack on more, but it's not going to change the fact that your mortgage rates are already sky high, 7-8% in some cases. This could lead to a slight tilt higher. Stock markets could slip a little bit. Again, it's all in theory, but it really won't change your household finances, at least in the immediate future.
And I understand the Treasury, White House, not so happy about this, right? What are they saying?
No, not at all. We actually heard from Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen yesterday in a statement immediately after Fitch issued this. She said, I strongly disagree with its decision. She said, moreover, that it's, quote, arbitrary and based on outdated data. She seemed to criticize also the timing of this decision. It is indeed curious that 2 months after we saw the resolution of the debt ceiling, now you see the credit ratings agency go, okay, maybe the United States reliability in terms of paying their bills on time and in full isn't that great. That's something that maybe might be under review. We saw it the last time that this happened. Again, Fitch is not the first agency to do this. S&P did it over 10 years ago in 2011. You saw lawmakers on Capitol Hill say, we might try to get them to come onto Capitol Hill and explain their methodology behind this, because this is a pretty big deal for one of the largest credit ratings agencies to say, okay, the United States doesn't have that pristine rating anymore. Could there be more Capitol Hill interest in this? We'll have to see.
Do we have any idea how quickly an upgrade could happen?
Well, what's interesting is that S&P, after they downgraded us over 10 years ago, they never re-upgraded us again. Now, for what it's worth, we have to remember, okay, from a triple A to a double A plus, that's still a relatively high rating. It's not like these ratings agencies are saying, well, it's junk debt that the United States has now. It's not at all anything close to that. But a double A plus is still, again, not the best rating here. But again, in the 10 years since S&P did it during the Obama administration debt ceiling negotiations, they haven't seen anything from the United States that says they could get their house in order fiscally to warrant an upgrade. Maybe Fitch might see it the same way. We'll have to see.
Brian Chung, we always appreciate you. Thank you so much. Welcome back. If you've ever dreamed of living like Gwyneth Paltrow, here's your chance. The Hollywood star has partnered with Airbnb to list her Montecito, California guest house for a one-night stay in September. Look how gorgeous this is. The guest house includes a spacious kitchen, living room, bedroom, and a bathroom filled with, what else? Goop beauty products. Plus, it's got a pool and stunning views. If that's not enough, the one night also includes a meditation session and a spa day. And to top it all off, Paltrow will personally greet her guests and join them for dinner.
Wow.
So much happening in one guest house.
That is is it expensive? Do we know?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go.
It's competitive. All right.
If you're a big fan, go for it.
All right. That does it for this hour of Morning News Now.
But the news continues right now. Don't go anywhere.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.